The silence in the Yamaha garage is deafening. Outside, the sun beats down on the asphalt of Jerez, but inside, the atmosphere is freezing. Toprak Razgatlioglu, the man who was supposed to be the savior of the blue crew, sits motionless. His leathers are scuffed, his eyes fixed on a telemetry screen that tells a brutal story. In the world Superbike paddock, he was a god, a rider who could make a motorcycle dance on its front wheel at 200 miles per hour. But here, in the shark tank of MotoGP, the stuntman is finding out that gravity and physics work differently. The legendary Yamaha YZR M1, a bike once defined by its surgical precision, has been ripped apart and rebuilt with a ferocious new V4 heart. Yet, as the 2026 season reaches the Cathedral of Speed in Spain, the dream is teetering on the edge of a nightmare. No one inside the paddock expected what would unfold next. Yamaha wasn't just fighting for a podium, they were fighting to prevent their star signing from walking away entirely. And the secret to their survival wouldn't come from the factory team, but from a calculated, high-stakes gamble involving their newest ally. This is the story of a transformation that would change everything for Toprak, his team, and the entire future of Yamaha racing. When Toprak Razgatlioglu signed his 2026 contract, the headlines called it the transfer of the century. Yamaha had finally secured the most talented rider outside of the MotoGP paddock to lead their revival. But behind the flashy press conferences in Siena, the pressure was building fast. Toprak wasn't just joining a new team, he was entering a manufacturer in the midst of a technical identity crisis. For decades, Yamaha's DNA was built on the inline-4 engine, smooth, flowing, and dominant in the corners. But the 2026 season marked the death of that era. Driven by a desperate need for power, Yamaha had finally unleashed their V4 prototype. The transition was violent. In the opening rounds, the bike looked like a monster that refused to be tamed. Toprak, standing at a towering 185 centimeters, was already at a disadvantage. He was too tall for the standard aero package, forcing engineers to strip away rear winglets just to fit him on the machine. This abnormally tall stature for a modern GP rider meant his center of gravity was constantly working against the bike's electronics. Every time he tried to apply his signature late-braking style, the rear of the M1 would light up in a chaotic slide, leaving him 18th on the grid while his rivals vanished into the distance. But the real turning point happened away from the cameras, in the deep data logs of the Sepang and Portimao tests. The telemetry revealed a staggering truth. Toprak was losing nearly half a second on every single corner exit. In Superbikes, Toprak could use the mechanical grip of the Pirelli tires to squirt the bike out of a turn. But the Michelin rubber used in MotoGP is a different beast entirely. It demands a delicate balance of lean angle and throttle application. The Yamaha V4 had the raw horsepower, but it lacked the brain to put that power to the ground. Inside the garage, whispers began spreading that Toprak's stuntrider DNA was rejecting the M1. He was fighting the bike, forcing it to do things a prototype wasn't designed for. While his teammate Fabio Quartararo relied on a decade of GP experience to mask the flaws, Toprak was exposed. He was closing in on rivals under braking, showing flashes of his legendary aggression, only to be swallowed whole on the straights. The corner exit curse wasn't just a technical glitch. It was becoming a psychological weight that threatened to break the most confident rider in the world. Yamaha recognized that this problem couldn't be solved with minor adjustments. They needed a radical shift in strategy. That's where Prima Pramac Racing came in. Ahead of the Jerez round, the paddock noticed something unusual. Pramac was no longer acting like a satellite team. They had become a second factory, a high-speed laboratory designed specifically to accelerate Toprak's learning curve. Yamaha's technical analysts had developed a new near-real-time data analysis system, linking the garages of Jack Miller and Toprak Razgatlioglu. Jack Miller, the veteran Aussie with years of V4 experience from Ducati and KTM, was tasked with the heavy lifting. While Toprak focused on his riding style, Miller's Pramac bike was being loaded with experimental chassis configurations and radical aerodynamic wings. Every small change Miller made was immediately fed into a central server. If Miller found a setting that improved rear-wheel traction by even 1%, that data was flashed to Toprak's crew chief before his next run. It was a massive, expensive experiment in hive-mind engineering, but the question remained, would it be enough to save Toprak at the most technical circuit on the calendar? As the trucks rolled into the Circuito de Jerez, the atmosphere was electric. This was Toprak's territory, the track where he had clinched a world title and performed some of his most daring overtakes. But the paddock was buzzing with a different kind of energy. Rumors suggested deeper tension behind closed doors. Some insiders claimed that Toprak had grown so frustrated with the Michelin tires that he had conducted a secret test on Pirelli rubber just to prove a point to Yamaha engineers. Whether true or not, the narrative was clear. The rider was reaching his limit. Jerez is a track of fast and flowing sections punctuated by brutal stop-and-go hairpins. It demands a bike that can trail brake into the apex and launch out with perfect stability. For Yamaha, it was a double-edged sword. The track suited Toprak's aggressive braking, but it punished the M1's poor acceleration. Yamaha engineers were seen working late into the night, redesigning the bike's weight distribution to lower the center of gravity for their tall Turkish star. They weren't just searching for speed. They were searching for a way to make the bike feel like an extension of Toprak's body again. The climax arrived during the final practice session before qualifying. The Pramac strategy seemed to be working. Miller had found a breakthrough in the electronics mapping that smoothed out the initial throttle hit, and Yamaha immediately applied it to Toprak's bike. For a moment, the world saw the old Toprak. He was flying. He came into the final corner at Jerez, the famous Jorge Lorenzo corner with the rear wheel hanging in the air, a classic stoppy entry that left the photographers in awe. His lap time was purple. He was on track to challenge the lap record, proving that the V4 Yamaha could finally compete with the Ducatis and KTMs. But as he tilted the bike into the apex, something went wrong. The telemetry showed a sudden, unexplained spike in engine temperature. The bike twitched, the traction control struggled to keep up, and Toprak was forced to pick the bike up and run wide into the gravel. The garage went silent. The high-speed data loop had found the speed, but it had pushed the prototype to its absolute mechanical breaking point. What happened after that session left even his closest team members stunned. Instead of anger, there was a grim determination in the Yamaha camp. They had found the limit. The move to make Pramac the core of their technical strategy had unlocked a level of performance no one thought possible in such a short time. They had bridged the gap between a Superbike champion's instinct and a MotoGP prototype's cold logic. But as the sun sets over the Spanish hills and the mechanics prepare the bikes for the main race, the tension is higher than ever. Yamaha has gambled everything, their budget, their reputation, and the career of their star rider on this new V4 era. They have the data, they have the talent, and they have the most aggressive rider on the planet. But as the lights go out at Jerez, the world will see whether this bold blue shift truly unlocks a new era of dominance or whether the twist that followed would change the championship narrative entirely. One thing is certain, the paddock has never seen a comeback attempt this desperate. And it's only the beginning of a far bigger storm.